Welcome to Patrick's Scale Studio. My name is Patrick. I'll be your host. So for video 6 of the USS Fletcher, DD-445 in 1/200 scale by Trumpeter, we are going to be concentrating on weathering this hull. So it looks like it's actually been out to sea and not just interesting rivet plates there on the armor belt. So what you see before you here is a hunk of cardboard and some dabs of oil colors by 502 Aptalung. Various different colors to apply to the red portion of the hull, and then salt wash, and then various algae and growth and stuff like that right around the waterline. I've got some brushes. They're not really great brushes. They're just brushes I like to use for doing this. I don't need anything particularly small or detailed, so that's why I've got that. And then I've got some cotton swabs just in case I really need to dip into mineral spirits and wipe away completely. Additionally, I always keep this right here, so after I dip a brush in my mineral spirits, I can get most of it off, because I don't want a sopping wet mess on the side of this here when I'm working with these oils and trying to drag them in certain directions and work with them in certain ways. I just want kind of almost an incredibly dry brush, and that will be just enough, just the perfect amount in order to kind of move those oils back and forth, or kind of, break them up a little bit so it doesn't look like just dots of oil paint on the side of this. So I'm going to go ahead and get things arranged and be right back here when we're ready to start. Okay, so I went ahead and did a test piece here just to make sure that I had the proper conditions set aside here for putting down some salt staining and salt streaking. I'm going to bring this up a little bit, see if we can get that a little bit better in focus for you. Alright. Now don't pay any attention to down here, and along the bootstrap is going to have a little bit of algae and stuff like that kind of speckled in there. But mainly it's this white streaking here in the gray and the navy blue. That I was kind of really concerned with. Just some up and down streaks, like water is washed up on there and left a slight little bit of salt behind. Now that, compared to back here, as you can see, besides the panel line and the little rivet plates sticking out, there's not really too much more of interest right there, as opposed to that right there. So some people might have said this is a little heavy-handed, but you could certainly go a lot heavier on this to the point where those colors are almost washed out, by about half. I tend to kind of like it a little bit more subtle, actually. So I really kind of scrubbed a lot of this back here after applying it. So the next thing here, I'm going to get set up here so I can film showing you a little bit of section on how I go about doing this. It's not necessarily the best way or the ultimate method or anything like that. It's just how I do it and how I accomplish a look on my models that I'm comfortable with. So let me get set up for that, and I'll be right back. Okay, so I want to go out as in advance of saying it is important to note that some of your previous work with enamels and the dry brushing with oils and things like that may suffer a little bit here with the use of the mineral spirits and other oil paints. And it's okay. We can go back over and dry brush anything, any detail that we feel like we've lost or anything like that. So, like for instance, right here, I think I might want to re-add a very, very thinly very thinned oil panel line right into there. I'm not going to go back and use the Tamiya because the enamels over top of this just won't run properly, but if I thin down a oil paint properly here, I can probably get that real nice dark line back in there. So like for instance, that failed, and I probably want to clean up on the bottom of this as well. And so I'll probably lose a little bit of detail here right around these rivet plates, and that's okay. The other thing I'm trying to do is keep it off of the red here. I accidentally got a little exuberant when I started testing this out here and got it into this first area right here. The second hunk, though, looks a little bit better. So I'm going to concentrate on about a section like about that big right there, from here to about the end of this little, I don't know, it's not a bulwark, but I don't know what it's called. But at any rate, we're going to go ahead and start off here with one. I'm going to get a little bit of mineral spirits, and as an aside there, make sure proper ventilation, because even though it's odorless, it still has a small odor, and it can definitely cause health problems. So I'm going to go ahead and kind of pre-wet this area a little bit. And you see there's barely anything on the brush there at all, because it's just barely popping up. And sorry about the camera here. I've tried getting this in focus as best as possible. So there we go. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to wet a teeny tiny little liner brush, just barely with, again, some of the mineral spirits. I'm just going to barely dip it into that Snow White paint right there. And I can come along here and just right around the waterline, I want to barely drag this along here. You can just see barely anything kind of coming off of there. If I get a great big glob of paint on there, it is going to be a lot headache to clean up. This is what you'll do is you get this great big white streak on there, and it'll look like an avalanche rather than a salt streak. So there, we barely have any. I'm going to go ahead and rinse my liner brush. And this one looks a little heavy, so I'm going to go ahead and, again, cotton swabs are friends. Really, all I'm doing right now is kind of just picking up any of the excess. It's not firmly adhered into the paint. And this paint is not glossy. As you can see, it's got a little bit of tooth to it. And that's on purpose, kind of help the oils rather than just sliding all the way off. Kind of helps work them into the paint. That said, you can still get the oil out if you don't like what you've just done by using a paper cloth or a paper towel, dampened with mineral spirits and going over it. Depending on how vigorous you do, you may pull up some of the paint beneath it, even though it's not supposed to be the case. So now that I've got that on there, I'm going to go ahead and just kind of grab it from there and pull upward. The less it's on there to begin with, the less work you have to do in getting this to where you want it to be. I'm pulling in an upward motion, which would be perpendicular to the level of the water that this would be cruising around in, looking for submarines, protecting convoys, what have you. Alright, now as we can see here, we've got some salt streaking on there. As you can see, it's a little bit heavier than over here. So I'm going to flip the brush around and just kind of keep going over it, just super lightly. You can press in a little bit more if you want to drag it up further, or you want to get more of the paint off at the same time. It doesn't hurt to get a little bit on this little piece right here, and I would say it's probably a better description of a splinter shield than anything else. This is not really gunnel, I think is the word I was looking for, maybe. But I could have been right the first time and wrong the second time here. But it's not so much a part of the hull as it is kind of sitting on top of the hull. So I don't think it. I think it would more closely qualify as a splinter shield. Just feel free to let me know where I've gone wrong in my terminology, and I will try my best going forward. All right. Alright, so let's have a look now. Alright, that definitely looks a little bit better. And one thing I've also noticed here is, while I'm at it, I'm going to take another clean cotton swab and kind of go over areas where you think the effect is standing out a little bit too much. And this will soften it down. The nice thing about this oil paints is you've got a very long working time with them. So it's very easy to push around the color, or the white in this case, while you don't have necessarily a bunch of mineral spirits on there. But now, as you can see here, we've got some salt streak and salt staining on here. I do want to point out that it probably looks a little bit harsher on camera than in person, and that's just kind of the way it goes. So I'm going to go ahead and finish up with the rest of the hull, and get back to you and show you how that looks when it's all finished before we move on to getting this red part. Be right back here in a bit. Alrighty, here you got the entire hull with a little bit of salt streaking, salt staining right there. I even got in the stern area. A little bit difficult to see that on the camera though, with how tall this thing is standing up. There we go. Alright, so the next thing I really want to tackle here is getting some of these different reds put down onto the red part of the hull right here. Again, just to kind of help it look like a little bit of fading, a little bit of visual interest, but also potentially highlighting some of these edges right here, a little bit of dry brushing action, just to kind of make them stand out, pop a little bit. But again, the main focus there is kind of give that a little bit of a beat up and kind of worn appearance there. So that is going to be next. We're going to start off using probably this darker shade of red. I believe it's like a brick red right there. And then we will, this right here will probably be next. And then this right here will be that final highlight coat there to kind of pick out some of the raised bits, maybe dry brush a little bit here just to kind of help some of that detail pop out at you. So let me go ahead and get set up here on that, and be right back. Alright, so I went ahead and actually went into the starboard side right here of the red portion of the hull, just right up front, and I just compare that to this other side, except for the streaks in the running paint right there, which will get cleaned off. But what I want to do is take this otherwise like really bland red color and transform it more into something like that, where it just kind of looks like this paint has been through some salt water. It's been through some stuff right there to kind of give it a little bit of a worn appearance, and that's what I'm looking to do. So we'll go ahead and show you on this side right here. First things first, kind of want to get rid of that right there. So what I did with this right here is I took a brush and clean it off real quick. I got plenty of mineral spirits on here. It's a little bit wet, and I'm just going to go ahead and get this area. You can tell through the sheen right there that it is currently wet. And then I'm going to go in here in the slightly wet brush, get some of this brick red right here, and right about at the bootstrap, I'm going to go ahead and kind of get some and again, you don't have to be afraid about putting too much on there, because mineral spirits will always clean it right up. So I'm just taking that and kind of pulling it down. Alright, clean our brush off. And this time I'm looking for more of a dry brush right now. And I'm going to do this so I can actually get to it a little bit easier. And I'm actually putting some pressure on here, and I'm just going straight down, perpendicular to the bootstrap line. So a little bit of pressure on there. And flip it over if you need a little bit of a cleaner side of your brush. And again, this is just how I do it. This doesn't necessarily mean that there is no other ways that are way better than mine. There's a lot more accomplished modelers out there. Absolutely, I'd be the first to admit that I'm probably in the bottom half. I just like sharing what I'm doing. Now this one here right now is a little less pressure. Just kind of feathering it a bit. Again, pulling perpendicular to the bootstrap. Alright, so after that's done, wet my brush up a little bit and get some of this deeper red here. As you can see, it's quite wet. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put some here on the bottom. Hopefully everyone can see. Very easy to get lost in what I'm doing. Alright, so rinsing the red off. And I'm going to take this, I'm going to drag it up perpendicular to that bootstrap. Again with some pressure. You don't have to go all the way to the black bootstrap. Alright, I'm going to give that a moment to let the mineral spirits evaporate a little bit, kind of see where we're at. Alright, so again, I'm going to reverse order again, and we're going to go down from the bootstrap. I'm not too overly concerned right now with paint on the bootstrap. After it's all said and done, I can take a moistened cotton bud and I can trace the line of the bootstrap and get most of that off. Alright. Now, move this out of the way so we can check out our work. Alright, so we got some lines here, What we'll end up doing is taking a cotton bud again and just wiping it over that, just to kind of help soften it up. Because what I'd like to not have is brush strokes. This is different than salt streaks in that we don't want it to look like individual streaks. Well, I don't want it to look like individual streaks. I just want it to look like the paint has been fading, and I want it to look like it's been fading unevenly. Alright, I'm happy with the way that looks now. The up and down kind of looks like it follows a little bit of the, they say oil canning effect, even though it's not really oil canning effect. So I'm going to go ahead and do the rest of the red in kind of the same manner, at least the red part of the hull that you can really kind of make out from the side profile. I'm not too worried about what's going on the bottom. Because at the end of the day, if someone is, and I wouldn't ever let them do it anyway, but they're not going to pick it up and start looking underneath just to see if I carried the effect through. But I'm going to go ahead and get the rest of this, and then we'll move on to some of the red highlight here, and then it's just going to be algae, and that should wrap it up. Okay, so I got the entire red part of the hull done, both sides, port and starboard here. But something you'll also notice here that was not part of that original, and let's see if I can get it to focus here up close, is you can also see some splotching on there. And I did that on purpose. Keep focusing, keep focusing. And I think it adds just another layer of texture to that part of the hull right there. And I'm glad that that's focusing a little bit. So I'd kind of explain how I went about doing so. The first time I went around and did that, I thinned out a lot this brick red color. And I mean, I thinned out a lot with mineral spirits, and then I took a little piece of sea sponge. And you can get this stuff, and it comes in big hunks, and then you just tear off a part of what it is you need for the size you need, and you go about it. And then, so I'm going to do a little bit more in a little bit more lighter, controlled fashion here. I want just a little bit of a lighter color to go on there. So what I do, and again, this is what I do. This isn't necessarily what, this is not the 100% tried and true method for everybody, but I tore off a little hunk. And I just dip it a little bit in this thinned out mixture here. And then dab it off about as much as possible. I barely want anything appearing on this paper towel. Should just about be almost nothing. Alright, so we're getting close. So now we can go in here and just start kind of picking a couple spots. This is a lighter shade. I'm going to go a little bit closer to the upper part of the red anti-fouling paint, closer to the bootstrap. And to really appreciate what this does, you kind of have to let it dry. So it's you don't see an instant change because it just looks like it's wet. And you can switch it up, try random. And actually, the more random, the better the effect. And it's okay to get some of this on that black boot stripe, not a big deal. And as you can see, we got a little bit more, just a little another layer of color, interest, and depth there. So I'm going to go do so on the other side here. And it's important to bear in mind, at least in my world, that we're really only viewing this from the side profile. The finished project is going to be viewed from the side profile. So I don't necessarily concern myself with the bottom of this so much, because again, I would probably smack somebody if they pick this up and try to turn it over and look at the bottom. Don't take my models into any kind of contests or judging or anything like that. This is purely for my enjoyment, my pleasure.
I found this on the web.
Quiet. All right. So that is done now, and I'm very happy with how that looks. So now our last step here in weathering is going to be a line of algae right around the bootstrap, probably toward the bottom of it. Any of the pictures I've seen of the Fletcher reel in the flesh is the water was just right there at the very bottom of the bootstrap. So that's probably where I will put a real thin little line of algae and sea funkiness. So I'm going to get set up for that, and I'll be right back. Okay, so the very next step, and as you've already seen, I like trying things out here before I actually show you what I'm doing on camera, is I want to add a little bit of like a light green algae line here right around the bootstrap. Again, just to kind of indicate that this has seen some water. It's seen the elements, it's been out there. So I've got several different colors here, and I'm going to show you how I applied that and how I got the effect that I think looks pretty good and pretty convincing. So be right back here with my setup. Okay, so the first thing that I've been doing is I thinned out some of this kind of like this sickly off-white, yellow-green kind of paint. I can't actually remember what the name of the color was on the tube, but thinned it down pretty heavily with some mineral spirits. You can kind of see it moving around in there. And I've just got a little piece of sea sponge on there and dipping it in there. Then I'm going to take a paper towel. I'm going to get just about most of this off. All right. And it's not so light as we did with the red here. I don't actually mind it showing up a little bit more. But because I'm going to go back and I'm going to soften this up a little bit. But just kind of applying this here at the very bottom half of that bootstrap. And it's kind of best to work in little sections at a time. So as you can see here, I've got about 3 inches. I'm just kind of almost smashing this in there. You know, the magic for me that comes afterwards is a fresh cotton swab and just kind of dabbing at it. As you can see, it's kind of picking up a lot of the extra paint here. And it's okay to have a couple, you know, sharp little spots where it's contrasting if that's your style. For me, I like it to be a little bit more subdued. So now I'm going to take the other end of that cotton swab. I'm just going to using just kind of like little light, I guess, scrubbing motion. Nothing super heavy-handed, and just kind of like you would try to blend something in, is how I would describe it. You can use an up and down if you like. I kind of just used whatever worked in that first patch right there. what's more convincing to me is that it doesn't look like it was applied to exact. For me and my way of thinking, randomness would be better. Alright, so, and then you can go on the bottom here, and we really want to feather this out. And you may have to grab if you're trying to do this the way I'm doing it, you may have to grab a fresh cotton swab. Alright, so the bottom of that is really starting to feather out nicely. And it's starting to follow the same general principle as this part right here. Alright, and then I want this to be just a little bit more dialed back on top. So really there's no 100% all the time prescribed method, just kind of whatever helps work into getting that first layer there to look like you want it. And secondly, I took a flat brush, this right here, number 6 flat brush, little mineral spirits to wet it down, and I got some of this sickly green color here. I don't want it too thin, that's why I'm just thinning it right here on the cardboard, but I definitely want to load this up. And with the very lightest touch, and again I'm aiming for the very bottom of the bootstrap, I'm just kind of dabbing this in. And you may have to go back and load up your brush again, as is the case here. And again, it's okay that it's not 100% uniform across the entire line. Actually, I think that helps to sell the effect. Now afterwards, going back over and kind of working that in a little bit. Alright, so that looks pretty bright. And it looks like I will have a little bit of touch up right here too. It's okay. The nice thing is working time with oils is, you guys can't even see that, working time with oils is a lot better than anything acrylic. It's very forgiving. The oils allow you to push the color around for a very extended amount of time. It can be heavier in some places, lighter in others. It really is just dependent on where the ocean would have wanted its algae to stick to the side of this destroyer. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and take the paint off of that. And then I'm going to go back here with a much smaller, this is a number 2 flat brush, and painting with oils and you're applying oils over top of other oils, the general rule of thumb here, and this is not just the way I prefer to do things, it is a general rule of thumb, is, this is a much darker green, is thin paint sticks to thick paint, not vice versa. So if you had thin paint down and you came and touched this with thick paint on your brush, chances are more likely you're going to actually lift the thinner paint off of the subject versus depositing that thicker paint onto the subject, if you get my drift. I've got thicker paint down, I want to put a thinner paint on top of it, so that's why I thin that green so much. And that looks very, very dark. So what I did again is, and you might run through boxes of cotton swabs, Q-tips throughout this journey, and it's just coming back and kind of dabbing some of that back. Let's see, it definitely imparts that green. The lighter colors, that off-white yellowish, and then the light green give it that kind of that slimy, grungy look. Alright, so as you can see there, alright, so got that. I'm going to come back with another brush one here, and again, just dabbing it. One thing also about dabbing it back like this with these cotton swabs is oil paints will tend to also impart a texture. And I'd really, if the subject were way larger or much heavier scale, much larger scale, if we were talking like maybe 1/100th, 1/144th, then I could see a touch of texture being on there, but at this scale, it's kind of like these rivet plates along the side of the hull, and they're just a touch overdone. Alright, so that is at about the spot where I want it. And you can also go back with a larger piece of sponge. Let me hunt down where it was. I had this one here. If you want more depth of the algae on the hull, you can sponge it on and kind of ghost it down a little bit here with the cotton swabs as well. I tried that up here and it looks okay, but I'm not really gonna do that for the rest of the hull. But I'm going to go ahead and get the rest of this accomplished, and we'll be back when that's all done. Alright, so I've got all of the grunge and algae and everything here all applied to the entire length of the hull, both port and starboard side. It looks a little uneven, and the lighting here is not really doing it very much justice. I will take some pictures and post them for 10-15 seconds here, kind of at the end of this here, so you can kind of see it in a little bit better light, a little bit better resolution than this terrible camera and lighting will allow for right now. Next steps for me, though, after this video is I'm going to clean up some of the stuff here before that I had dry brushed and put some panel lines into, just to kind of reinforce again those panel lines, and then dry brush a little bit on these rivet plates here on both sides, starboard and port, just so I can bring that detail back. A lot of it got washed out with some of the mineral spirits and some of the work with the oils and everything like that. So once we get that done, which I'm gonna do off camera, next step for us are going to be getting things clear coated in dull or a matte finish after this dries up enough. I give it several days, and probably we'll end up putting a few beginning rust streaks here, but I don't want to go overboard with the rust right off the bat until I've got more of the ship together, so I could see where it would be natural, where water might be washing over with a little bit of rust streaking and stuff like that. Obviously you're going to have some coming out of the hose pipes, and there's a couple little I think drainage ports right back here. Maybe you get a little bit of rust spot around these rivet plates and stuff like that, but there's going to be other spots where water's going to wash some rust stains overboard. So definitely want to get more of the superstructure and more of the ship together before we get those rust stains in place. So kind of know what to look for and where to go with that. So with that, we're going to wrap up this video. I really appreciate your patience, staying tuned here and checking out what I've got to provide. If you have any comments, questions, concerns, or you got techniques to suggest, or you see something I could be doing better, please absolutely let me know in the comment section below. I thank you very much for watching. Take care.